All right, I think we are live and ready to go. So, welcome everyone to the first interview of our interview series on the 10,000 Mothers Club. It is such a delight to invite Ailsa Robson from Australia here into the club and tell us her story and share with us her journey. We met, what, 3 months ago?
Yeah.
3 months ago.
Yeah.
And instantly I just felt like I'd made a lifelong friend. There was just a connection that was beautiful, and I wanted to share you with the world.
Oh, you're delightful. I felt exactly the same way. So it's all meant to be, all meant to be.
It is absolutely all meant to be. So I want to start today by asking you a very broad question to get to know you a bit better.
Sure.
So I want to ask you to tell us about a typical family meal when you were growing up.
Sure.
In your family.
Well, I jotted a couple of things down because I love your questions already, Emma. They're just,
thank you.
They're amazing. I had a really lovely, I've got lovely memories of family time. My parents are very keen foodies, and we lived at home. It was my mum and my dad and my brother and I. And we did there was a lot of cooking from scratch. There was a lot of sit down meals and getting together at the end of the day. My parents both had their own businesses, and we all came together and just had that time. In saying that,
beautiful. That sounds like it was a beautiful, thing in your family.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. I bumped into an old friend the other day, and she said that she remembers the nice part of the end of the day where my parents would have a glass of wine whilst they were making dinner together and have a little bit of cheese and bread as, kind of a start. So there was definitely a lot of pleasure and celebration, I think, that came around food. Yeah. I do, in saying that, I, looking at it through my health at every size lens now, I also noticed that there was certainly morality that was placed on food. So we had, my parents were very conscious of, growing their own fruit and vegetables, and eating kind of from the garden, and junk food was certainly and sugar. My father was a dentist, so sugar was
so 2 levels of morality there.
That's and the sugar thing, I think it may have helped me, like when the whole anti-sugar thing came out. I've been rolling with that my whole life. So I'm kind of buffered to that. But I remember there was certainly a shift for me when it came to the 80s, when I was a tween. I was about 11, I'd say, just starting to bud, like get hips slightly, and I remember my mother found one of her first kind of dieting books, and it was calorie counting books. Remember?
Yeah, I totally remember those. We had them in the shelves. Yep.
And so I was older than my brother by 4 years, and I'm not sure if it was also because I was the only girl in the family, but the dieting, when it came to the calorie counting, I was encouraged. I was definitely encouraged. In fact, it was, our meals were dissected. I remember this one time when we went away on family holiday, and my brother and my father they were just eating whatever they wanted, but my mother and I were measuring everything, you know, looking
Right.
at the packets and really kind of getting down to nitty gritty. And it was
And this was
horrible.
age kind of going through puberty and this.
Yeah.
And was it because it was considered a girl thing, or because you were bigger than your brother? Like, was it a
I,
body thing or a gender thing?
Yeah, I think probably a bit of both. I was certainly bigger
Yeah.
because I was 4 years older,
Yeah.
but I wasn't. I wasn't. I don't think I was an overweight child. I was. I've just always been tall and broad, and yeah. But I think there was a fear that my mother had over, you know, her relationship with her body,
Yeah.
and so it was certainly a fear that she wanted to keep me lean. She didn't
Yes.
want me to go through, you know, patches in her life where she'd been bigger. Yeah.
I so personally relate to that fear as a
Mm.
mum. Like,
Yeah.
even that's a fear that I noticed I had so deeply
Yeah.
when I started to learn this whole world of health at every size and intuitive eating, and why we've all gone so wrong, you know, with
Yeah.
with the diet world. And feeling, I really can relate to wanting to protect my child from
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
thinking the way to do it is, if I can ensure that they stay a certain weight, then
Mm.
I will have done my job.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
you know, I'm horrified at some of the things I did back when my kids were really little now. And
Mm.
but so happy to know that you can do it a different way. But so interesting to hear that that was already in play in your life, you know, and
Yeah.
that you can see that from your mum. Yeah.
I certainly, over the years, while I've been exploring health at every size and my relationship with my mother, and looking at generational traits and
Yes.
weight centric behavior, fat phobia, all of that
Yeah.
has actually enabled me now to look at it very compassionately, well, through a compassionate lens, and being a mother myself too, knowing that,
Yeah.
yeah, she wasn't doing it because, well, no one was doing it because they were trying to harm
No.
um,
No.
us. They were just trying to protect us, but
Yeah.
in doing so, it did harm. Yeah.
It's such a good distinction to get as
Mm.
a mum, and as a therapist and coach and
Yeah.
all that stuff as well, isn't it? That things these things we can reject, and because of the harm, and at the same time 100% get that it came from a place of love, not
Yeah.
any sort of intention to cause issues.
That's right. Well,
Yeah.
it's taken me quite a bit of my own therapeutic work, as well as working with
Hello.
therapists, and, you know, and doing my own, you know, master's degree in psychotherapy,
Yeah.
and still just, you know, being curious, lots and lots and lots of curiosity about, you know, even these questions were beautiful, you know, like I really enjoyed going through them, because I just pull my little notes over. Yes, I just had to jot down a couple of things, but yeah, that there was,
What was answer the, I love that. Yeah, go for it. Answer the ones that are
yeah,
calling to you.
well, just that, you know, that calorie counter. What I found when I thought about that, is that my parents, even now, still look for outside influences and outside
Yes.
knowledge to explain, or to somehow change, or to enhance their bodies. And that's quite, I find that quite curious, because obviously now too, with my research into health at every size, and understanding how diet
Yeah.
culture, you know, is it's inherent in so many different forms, that we, you
Yes.
know, we can see that a calorie counter book is a diet,
Yes.
but some of the more slippery you know, texts and kind of self-help books that are out there these days that are saying they're not diet books are actually certainly embedded in diet culture. So I can see.
And have your parents kind of shifted into that more sort of clandestine?
Certainly. They're 100% sold on whatever the latest thing is, whatever Michael such and such is doing, you know, whatever fasting diet, something else diet, gut health diet, something, whatever it is. and bless them, they say, you know, I think you should read this book. It's really, really special. It's important. And I have to lovingly say, you know, I appreciate where you're coming from and I'm glad it's being helpful for you, but I'm not interested. So no. Yeah.
It's good. Have you, I know we're going all over the place a bit, but just a really great question. Have you got some ways that you've learnt to respond to those questions? Because I get how hard those questions are. You know, like I've been practicing this for a number of years now, and I still find it quite hard to say, please don't talk to me about that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I'm the same. I'll take my glasses off because you can't actually see. Oh, that's better. There.
I know.
Yeah, it's I can't see much of you, but anyway, that's okay.
Shall I?
No,
I won't be able to see
no.
Okay, no. Yeah, cool.
I look, actually that just gives me a little bit of anxiety when you even ask me that, because it's like I think I've just managed to bumble my way through it. I certainly believe that information that I've read and your workbook is great. Your workbook's got some really lovely
thank you.
easily digested pieces of, you know, of lines in there, but I think I've just in the beginning days I would just be that stroppy defensive kind of teenage self that just goes, no, like get stuffed.
That's sort of,
just stop, you know. And then as time has gone on, and through my own work, as I said, I'm a psychotherapist, so learning more and more about how to manage the conversations. I think I use a lot of curiosity and a lot of compassion, and sometimes that works out well, and sometimes it just allows, it's acknowledging where the person is coming from. It doesn't mean that you're taking on their stuff. It doesn't mean that you're taking on their opinion, and it kind of leaves you generally in a place where you both feel like you haven't lost ground. But it does take practice.
I love it really, and I love, do you know what I love? I love that you're open enough to go, it causes anxiety for me too. Like it's really important, I think, and it does for me too. Like, even though I've written a workbook with ideas on how to have these conversations, it does not mean, and sometimes I feel like, should I even be telling people how to have these conversations when I find them so hard? You know, I've had to really have compassion for myself to go, actually, they are hard conversations, and they're not conversations that our culture really wants us to have. So, you know, it's not just a hard conversation because you've got a difference of opinion, but it's an opinion that's really like, why wouldn't you want to talk about losing weight? Like,
no,
it's really surprising to some people.
It goes against that, I suppose, that feeling that we're supposed to always be compliant, you know, and go along with the social norms. But it's you know, it's really difficult, and I suppose, I think maybe because we both have that shared lived experience, that's exactly where you and I connected immediately on. So
100%.
I think that, you know, being honest about your own story and sharing those experiences with people, that's the powerful part. The lived experience is the powerful part. And also knowing that we're not none of us are going to be perfect at this. We're all learning. So it is being compassionate with ourselves and with other people.
100%. 100%. And I know we took a little deviation there, but I want to go back to, you know, we've kind of got to where you are in puberty and got that picture of, you know, your mum's really trying to protect you from this world, and but it's, you know, it's getting sort of, she's doing so with ways that are unhelpful, unintentionally. And then so how did that go through your teen years? And
well, I you know, the minute you start going on to diets, then of course you lose weight, and then you regain weight and you gain more weight, and that's when really I think things started snowballing for me, in the sense that it affected my mental health, and I ate more for comfort, and I didn't feel that my body was good enough, and I didn't trust my body. And I think that that's probably the key, is that the going on the diets, and for my parents always kind of looking outside of themselves and their own personal knowledge about their body, it sets you up to not trust your own body. And I've had to pull myself back from that, and that's been my goal. But I certainly it was horrible. I feel so sorry for my younger self, because I just increased weight, you know. I just kept going up, and then I'd drop a bit and then go up, and I'd be rewarded by, you know, the family was so positive and friends were positive about weight loss, and then, you know, and then I'd go up again, I'd stop losing weight, and the diet cycle would start again, and I'd go up again. So my poor self.
Oh, you're poor. And it happens, so that disconnect, I know my experience was, and I want to talk more about it, that loss of trust is such a defining thing, for want of a better word. It becomes such a big part of our psyche, and it happens really quickly, doesn't it? It's not a slow over time. It's kind of like trust is gone. And then we think the way to get trust back is to somehow have more control and more
oh yeah
you know go, we've got, you know, more restriction, and then we do that, and in the short term it works, and we get that intense social reward, which sets us up to think, oh, that's a good thing to do.
It is a good thing. Weight loss is a good thing.
And then it's just such a cliff we fall off. You know, it's just it's so quick. And I love your analogy about that. I really do.
It is. And of course comes the shame, you know, the shame with it. So I remember some of the wording that was used within my family, and still gets, I get triggered by it, but also I find myself, it still pops up into my language sometimes, and it you know, I notice it, but it worries me. You know, it's shameful to be greedy. It's shameful to be fat. It's shameful to have kind of needs, like your body's needs, you know, like the need of comfort with food, the need of soothing. It's shameful to be lazy, you know, to sit around and eat and be lazy. There's also lots and lots of all this stigma that came with it. So and
there's a real attitude that as soon as you're over a certain weight, that absolutely indicates without a doubt to the rest of society that you are lazy, isn't it? It's one of the things that our social fabric kind of has woven in it. You know, fat equals lazy, fat equals ugly, and fat equals unhealthy. You've got
unhealthy.
It's kind of the trifecta. and the unhealthiness becomes morally charged as soon as there's weight involved, isn't
Absolutely.
it?
Well,
like a thin person with diabetes is just seriously unlucky.
Yeah.
Whereas a fat person with diabetes is lazy and doesn't care for themselves, and it's all that.
It goes with it. And my mother would say to me, I don't know why I can't tell you how I feel about your body, because I'm only doing it for your health. And I said, but in the end, when I was getting to that stage of saying, but it hurts, and she said, it's a fact though that you are fat. So that's a fact, and it's a fact about your health. So it's like, regardless of how it was, impacting on my mental health, she was only seeing it by thinking that it was a physical fact. It isn't a physical fact.
No,
I am not unhealthy.
It's you, and it's so interesting, isn't it? That before I could say even it's so interesting. Is your mum open now to the idea that maybe that fact that fat is unhealthy is not a fact, that it is, or is it not somewhere that has is it still not there yet with her and them?
Yeah, no, I don't think I can really quite shift things. It's not my place to shift there.
No.
But I would say that she's probably very proud of the fact that even though I live in a larger body, I work out regularly, and I run, and I participate in healthy activities in her mind. So I think that would be a tick in her book. I still don't think she'd be convinced that my health is as good as it could be, and I know that there was one thing that I said. I tried to explain it to her in a different way. I said, years ago, when my grandmother, her mother-in-law, who she had a little bit of a difficult relationship with, when I used to go and stay with my grandmother would she was a very strong woman, but she did not believe in feminism, and I would be absolutely inducted into the woman's place is in the kitchen, and we must tend to the men and cook for them and look after them, and my mother would send me off to my grandma's and say, now just remember that's bullshit. And and it's sexism, and there's other ways of thinking. So I explained to her that actually the last form of ism, of course, is fatism, and the way that I said, I understand that you probably can't see the way that I see the world, because you're like grandma was, in the sense of her stance on feminism, like you are on weight shaming. And so she was just kind of a bit floored by that, but that's exactly how I see it. When I send my girls to my mother, I say, just remember, if you get this and this and this, just, remember this and this and this. So
do you know that it gives me tingles in my arms, this story, because it's so beautiful to hear you talk about how you can get that it's not your job to change your mum. No. It'd be fabulous, right, if she did. It'd be fabulous if she, of course, but it's not your job. And that you can get, and not only can you sort of give that story back to her to make her go, oh yeah, I can see that, but that she gave you that story. Like, she was
Oh
the
yeah,
one that was like, you can do this with your kids.
yeah.
And how, even though it's in a different realm,
Mm.
what a great role model
Oh
for
yeah,
you.
absolutely. Yeah, I
And I
certainly,
get that you can see that about her, which is
yeah,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah. No, I would love it if she just woke up one day and could and had the same kind of lens as me. But obviously, as you said, I do have very similar lenses to her. They're in just different boxes, and
Yeah.
and we and there's she had different fights to fight, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
And look, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I grew up in a family that held social justice as a really high value. Like,
I
we,
agree. Same.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
my mum, marched for feminism and went on
Yes.
feminism, and
Mm.
dad had a caftan and sat around on
Yep.
cushions, and and they were very much like, gay marriage was something to be respected and fought for, and
Yep.
and racism was
Yep.
totally uncool,
Uh-huh.
and yet, the whole idea that
Mm.
fat people are less than thin people was
Mm.
absolutely okay.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
but, like you, I feel like they gave me this lens to look at the world and go, actually,
Mm.
that's not cool.
Yeah.
That we're treating people on how they look, not on who
Yes.
they are. and
Yes.
and that wasn't cool when Martin Luther stood up. It wasn't cool when the Springboks wanted to have a test here, and and it's still not cool. So
Yeah.
it's a real, I really, really appreciate my parents instilling that in me, because I wouldn't be doing this work, I don't think,
I
if it
agree.
wasn't for that. And I really dislike the way that, like, my dad's still on a diet, and he's
Yeah. Bless.
80
Yeah.
next year,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I agree. Well, there you go. That's another similarity. I think that's
Yeah, yeah.
and I didn't quite understand that. I'm learning even more so, as you said, social justice. Like, I think this is um it's huge once you kind of cross over into the light side of health
Once
at
that
every size.
lens is, like, once you see it, you can't unsee it, can
No,
you? Yeah.
no, you can't. And then it's yeah, but it gives me so much satisfaction, and it's given me um just it's empowered me in my own life as well in other ways where I would have been possibly too timid to
Yep.
speak out against things, and I'm not these days, or too timid to
Love
try different things in my business, and I'm not these days.
that.
um,
So cool.
yeah, and in my
Yeah.
parenting and in my relationship and my marriage as well, I think, and friendships, it's just, it makes me it empowers me right across the board.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, I didn't expect, I feel exactly the same, and didn't understand that this journey to just have that shit out of my head
Yeah.
would have such wide consequences.
Yeah.
It's kind of the unsung benefit, isn't it?
It is. It's kind of like this sparkly, like there's gold at the end of the rainbow, It's kind of
It
like a
really,
trudgy rainbow. You've got to kind of trudge up it, and
it,
there's
it
gold.
really, it really is. It really is. I'm just looking down too, because I'm just seeing if there's any
Questions?
questions at this point that have come up. No, that's totally fine. But if anyone has a question and is watching, because we've got quite a few people watching, which is awesome.
Oh, that's fantastic.
If anyone has a question, please feel free to put them in, and we will address that. But in the meantime, I want to we were just about I think we're just about up to the point where
Yeah.
you this book was so beautiful when I read it, and I realized the thing I loved the most is I have read so many books about health at every size and intuitive eating and social justice where it pertains to bigger bodies and what we can do. And, you know, I feel like I've read a lot from the point of where we start learning that stuff. But what I love about your book, Perfectly Imperfect, is that it brings you on the journey from how you got there.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really, really important story. I think it's a really important story to help people go, well, how do I get from here to being ready? You know?
Thanks.
Yeah.
I
So tell us about how that all came about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, when my daughters were really little, about 10 years ago now, my husband was a FIFO worker, fly in, fly out, and I spent a lot of time in the Adelaide Hills on our property with young children, and I was just basically cathartically journaling about what was happening in my life, how I felt about my body, how I felt about mothering, how I felt about weight, how I felt about just the world. It does, because it's my journey. I never thought I'd put it into a book. It was just me sitting there with the children. Sometimes they were like, I'd posting things through the child gate at me, like while I'm trying to type. I'm going, hang on a minute. Yeah, hang on, here's your bottle. Just wait a minute, I'm just going to finish this, and then I'd have to stop because one's screaming or one's needing a nappy change, okay, get back, because I just needed to purge everything out. So
just get it out from in here.
It was, yeah. So I had already been introduced to health at every size via the book, via Dr. Rick Korsman's book, If Not Dieting, Then What? And I got introduced to that just after I got married. And so I had started, bringing it into my life, but it was still,
the seed was sown, wasn't it? But it took a long time.
Yeah.
And it's the same with me, but I want to hear about that, because it's really
so I had a dietitian. I went to a dietitian, and I said, can I have a diet, please? And she said, actually, I won't give you a diet, but would you like to have a look at, some of these pages, some of these Dr. Rick Korsman, If Not Dieting pages? And I said, no, I want a diet. And she said, I'm sorry. So she was a non-diet dietitian. One of the earliest, I would say. And this is back in, when was that? That was in 2005, I think it was about 2005.
Wow.
And so and then I went and I met Dr. Rick Korsman. I went over to Melbourne and I had a consult with him, and he, beautiful man, and very generous with his time, and a GP. And he just was very gentle with me, just held space with me as I kind of went through, but what about this? This could be a diet. This isn't a diet. And he's like, yeah, that's a diet. And what about this? That's a, you can imagine, I feel like I certainly feel for all of people that are working within health at every size space, and they're just, they're inundated and they're kind of saturated by the stories. But I still feel that's probably where I engage best with people, and especially through the book, is that early part when you're still trying to go, oh yeah, I really like the idea of not dieting, but I just would like to put these jeans on that are 3 sizes too small. So you're just justifying that shift. And I think that's the book. The book was me kind of justifying shifting. And
there's so many layers to it, aren't there? It's so nuanced, and getting through layers and layers and our own beliefs and our own, it just does take time.
It does. And we're all different, and there's good days and there's not so good days, and we all have our time frame. It's not just that you read the book and then, oh, okay, so my mind shift, I've just had a mind shift, and now I'm forever going to be able to go down this path. No, when you've got these inbuilt mechanisms that are in your mind and in your body that are saying, I need to be in a smaller body. Smaller bodies are better bodies.
It's so, and I like to remember that sometimes, as I really try and consciously remember that my journey to health at every size and true intuitive eating went through a non-diet, non-HAES phase, like a non-diet your way into thinness. And I went through a non, like a mindfulness your way into thinness, and a spiritual your way into thinness.
Okay.
But it was the bit of into the thinness that I just couldn't. But part of it was I was getting sold the idea that as long as you don't want to be, as long as you don't not trying to be thin anymore, you will naturally be thin. Or as long as you're spiritual enough, you'll naturally be thin. Or as long as you don't diet, you'll be thin. So they weren't even pretending to be HAES, but they were pretending to be non-diet. But the thing that I try and remember is it was a stepping stone for me, that it would have taken just as long, even if I had read, Body Respect or Health at Every Size at the same time, I still wouldn't have been ready for that journey. So they helped me along the way, even though they have some really harmful messages. Now I can see. So it's really, it's really great to hear your,
Certainly. Well, I mean, through the book, I have gastric surgery. So
you still went really down the diet route.
I went after all that, calorie counting book to gastric surgery. That's the path that I went, all the way. And
all the way, even with an introduction to Health at Every Size,
all the way. And so I certainly understand that. And and do I regret the surgery? Well, if I had a choice to do it again right today, I certainly wouldn't. But it was, as you said, it was my path, it was my journey, and I know that along the way, as odd as it sounds, but I was able to blend some of the learning about health at every size as I managed, as I navigate.
Was it percolating? Was it there? Was.
I challenged each medical professional that I came across with health at every size principles, whilst still having an end goal of weight loss. But it was, I tell you what, health at every size was my when you fall off the trapeze.
Was your net?
It was my net.
Your safety net.
You're always going to fall off the trapeze. Every diet, whether you've had surgery or whether it's a diet, you're always going to fall off it. There is no silver bullet. So health at every size was my net, and it caught me, and it reminded me that I was not the problem, that diet culture was the problem, and that even though I felt at times that I had failed the surgery, I had not failed the surgery. The surgery had failed me. That was just it's just, yeah.
What, oh, shivers again. What such it is a fundamental shift that has to be gone through, I believe, in order to have healing, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a pivotal moment of going from all those years of I'm failing this, I can't do it, something's wrong with me, I'm not good enough, I'm not, psychologically something's wrong or whatever, to going, actually something's wrong with that.
Yeah, it's
and
to externalize it. When you externalize it from yourself, it makes sense. It gives you that buffer to be able to look at it outside of yourself and to be curious about what that is, and to use compassion.
So important.
Yeah, with yourself and also with the world,
with others, with the world. And I want to talk now, because I know we've only got about 10-15 minutes left.
Yeah, sure.
I want to talk about the final piece, where you're now a walk talk therapist. And you help other people through this journey. Is that?
I do. I'm a psychotherapist, and I offer walk and talk therapy sessions with my clients as well. And some of my clients, not all of them, come to me because they would like to, they're having difficulty with body image, and they would like to explore their stories around that. So I listen and walk through with them on their journey. Sometimes there's a bit of disclosure of my own story, certainly if they've read the book, because that's quite an insight into my life. But the walk and talk therapy is just purely because walking in nature is the most delightful way of having a therapy session. It is not for weight loss, it is not to add exercise into a therapy session. It's purely to joyfully move your body if you would like to. And the pace of the walk and the pace of the therapy is absolutely led by the client.
So I'm curious now, because you had a couple of people who professionals you went to see who said, no, I'm not going to give you a diet. Here's something else. Do you have people come to you for as a therapist who want to lose weight, and are you in a position, or do they already know that that's not what you do?
There's certainly people that I'm fortunate. I'm not like the other health at every size professionals that I refer to and I work with in Adelaide. There's a lot of dietitians that, of course, are getting referrals from GPs, clients coming because they've been told they need to lose weight. Most people come to me, they've already started to have a look at my social media, they've already looked at my website, they may have touched base and understood. But I'm gentle with people. I never focus on weight loss as the end result. I focus on well-being and what that means for the client. So it could be that they just want to learn about intuitive eating. They could want to learn about ways of moving their body more joyfully without and exploring some of the blocks that they've had in the past to moving their body, or some of the psychological damage that dieting has done for them in the past.
And can you talk us through, was there a moment that you kind of discovered this is something you could do, or had it been
it was funny because, of course it was my own journey. And then when I was at uni, when I was doing my master's degree, after I had children, so I was juggling all of that and juggling. So the book crosses into when I started my master's too. I just knew that I've got a background in anthropology, and anthropology then lent itself to my love of narrative therapy. Narrative therapy talks about rewriting your own stories in your life, and the story of a good body is a smaller body is just a story. So it just lends itself beautifully. Yeah, beautifully. Yes. So I evolved into the therapist that I am. Yeah.
It's this kind of a series of, I love it. So how can, just while we're here on this topic, how can people find you?
Okay, so the best place to find me is probably on my website, which is ailsarobson.com. And then also I'm on Instagram as HAES _walk and talk therapist. And also I'm on Facebook too, as Ailsa Robson Walk and Talk Therapist. Yeah, I need to think about some of my handles here. I'm confusing.
That's right. That's right. But what I will do is
Google me. You'll find it. Google me.
But also, if you're watching this, I will put a link to your book, which I highly recommend. Anyone on this journey, anyone who's starting this journey or is even far down the journey, it's such a great book.
Thank you.
I'll put a link in the comments, and I'll also put a link to your website.
Thanks.
And then it'll be really easy for people to find.
Absolutely. Yes, go from there. That fortunately, as we said before, Emma, there's not many Ailsa Robsons in the world. There's a couple, but it's easily Googled.
Yes. True. Yeah. Before we go, I want to ask you, is there another book? Do you get asked this a lot? Is there we've got the journey up to where you are, and then is there one that is that in, or have you done your book?
I think I'm certainly, I write and I journal regularly, so I think that probably for me now it'll definitely be influenced by Health at Every Size, but it will go beyond that. I think maybe it would be more in the line of how Health at Every Size gave me the permission to be the woman that I am. And
I love that.
I love
that.
The mother that I am, so that,
and how it's informed your whole life as opposed to this kind of separate piece of your life.
Certainly.
I think that's a story we need. I think that's a story we need, because there is a lot of information about health at every size and how to put it into your life and what it is, and the social justice side of it, but those personal stories of how it actually affects us as people is really both interesting and really needed.
I think for me, personal stories are that's my strength. Divulging too much of myself it's my strength.
Well, it's beautiful that you have that strength, because not everyone does,
No.
And I can relate to it. Not everyone does, but it is so, gives us permission. Like that's what I loved so much reading your book. I realized is it just gives us permission to be human and to just live and be honest and know that things are going to be hard, and traverse life in the way that we did, and that permission is so empowering to all of us.
I think the permission, I know that we're talking to a group of mothers here, and I certainly believe that we are all doing our very best, and I think we need to give ourselves the permission to really feel that. And clearly my mother was doing her best, with the information that she had, and the generational stuff that was passed down to her. And so you and I are doing, and all of us are doing our very best as mothers with the information that we have now, and we won't get it right 100%. And our children are going to then do their very best. So I think, again, compassion for what we are trying to do, and I know that, as you said, the fear of getting this wrong and you know, and not being able to help our children get through life well, it's understandable that we have that fear, but we need to have permission to get it wrong, because we do, and we will.
I love that. I love that. And I really want this 10,000 Mothers Club and these kind of conversations to be about how we let go of trying to arrive somewhere where we've got it all sorted, you know, and while we are in the business of imparting information that might make a difference, it's really not about making a difference to arrive.
No.
Is it?
No.
Which is that whole health and well-being kind of idea that if you get your body right, you'll arrive. If you eat right, you'll arrive, and then everything will sort of start, and being on that sort of that kind of constant, well, I'm not there yet. You know, and I really want this, and that's what I'm hearing you saying, is that this place is somewhere we go, well, we never arrive, you know, like until we arrive in our grave, and then it's over.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, exactly. So and the freedom in that, you know, is really tremendous, isn't it? And I know I do, you know, I still have so many thoughts in my head that I know are just old thoughts, old programming of, you know, the body's not right, or whatever's not right. And I can now start to engage with those thoughts like a reminder that your life isn't going to start next week when the thighs or the whatever it is, you know, and now I quite enjoy that reminder, because it's like, oh yeah, okay, actually let's get into this imperfect day.
That's right. There's, you know, it's interesting because even perfectionism is certainly is what we're all experiencing, isn't it? But the imperfect part, I've even started questioning the title of my book, as you do, because of course the minute you release something and you learn more, and I think, you know, what is imperfection? You know, I don't know if there is such a thing as imperfection these days.
Interesting. I love that.
So, and I think that's probably shifted completely. That's been a massive epiphany that I've just had recently. So yeah, just that trust that whatever is happening, even if it feels a bit messy or it just doesn't feel quite right, it's still right. It is still it's still meant to be. So it's trusting that. Yeah.
And once again it comes back to learning to trust and getting out of this idea that everything has to be managed and controlled. And I love that. Well, it's been so beautiful to have you here, and it feels like we've been talking for 10 minutes.
I know.
And I've just seen it's
wonderful.
The hour is almost up. Do you have anything you want to leave us? But we've had so many amazing insights from you. Do you have any one last little thing you want to leave us with?
I suppose one question that we, for mothers, is when we were talking about what happened in my childhood at the dinner table and what happens now, the main line that I say to my children and to myself, and to anyone that wants to listen, is listen to your body, listen to your body, listen to your body. So when you know there's like a big smorgasbord of food on the table, and my girls are reaching for more and more and more, and I know that they're going to be chock-a block full, or they're not going to feel quite right after it, I'll ask them just to stop for a little while and just check in on themselves, just listen to their bodies. And that in itself, like my youngest, who's 9, the other day she said, Mum, when we have this takeaway food, when we go to this particular place for holidays, I don't sleep very well and I feel a bit sick before I go to bed. And I said, so what's that telling you? And she said, I think it's telling me that would we be able to make some salad instead, to have, instead of so much of that. And I was like, wow, and it was just her trusting herself and remembering how her body felt. So she could eat foods and amounts that made her feel well. And that's so in the context of trusting your body, I think that's really, but it's also trusting your mind too, like trusting that that feedback, that checking in on your mind and checking in on your emotions and checking in on your body is all the knowledge you need. You don't need books.
you really don't need anyone to tell you what to eat or what not to eat, do you? And children pick it up so much faster than us having to unlearn. I mean, saying they pick it up is silly. Children have it there.
They have it.
They have to unlearn a lot less, even if they've learnt already to disconnect. It's much quicker to bring that back. And that's so beautiful, isn't it? And it's a process too, I think, of I can hear in your speaking that you also trust her to trust herself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's such an unusual thing in this, like we don't hear that message to do that very often. We hear in the context of what we feed our kids, we hear the message that we need to police and that we need to restrict and we need to control. And it's really, really beautiful to hear you talk about teaching them how to trust. And because it's something I fundamentally believe in, and it's really cool to hear that from you.
And learning, as you said, learning to trust them as well, and learning from them. They are our little educators, aren't they? I mean, look at us on our really fancy Facebook Live, and we're like the experts in this, and they're going to come along in years to come and shatter us.
They're just going to be like,
yeah.
So funny. All right, well, so beautiful to have you here.
Lovely.
We thank you for ending it on that note. It's a really beautiful note, something we can all use today. Think about the trust that we have of our kids and teaching them to trust themselves. So thank you. I look forward to having you back again.
Thank you so much. Beautiful speaking with you, Emma.
You're very welcome. Bye, everyone.
Bye.